Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to start you off first with some satellite data here in parts of Quebec as we watched again another day of large wildfires spreading smoke that's getting wrapped up into the backside of this deeper low that is spinning here over parts of the Canadian Maritimes and Northeast. And that flow on the backside coming out of the north just drove that smoke into parts of New England. And yesterday on our high-resolution satellites, this is from NOAA, and we can see where that smoke just got pulled into to New York and all throughout the New England area. But we did have a lot of the smoke getting clear back into the Midwest, into the plains, and down into the Southeast as well. So we're going to go into another day where we're very concerned about the particulate matter that's in the atmosphere here. And it's interesting to see that in the high-resolution forecasts of that particulate matter, we are seeing that we're going off the color bar here with how much of that smoke is going to be in the atmosphere. So this is a health issue at this point. The air quality index values are going to be very high, which means they're poor. And we're going to watch this really just trace out the upper level winds that are just driving that smoke farther and farther to the south. Now, because of that, there are air quality alerts throughout parts of the Northeast, getting down to the Carolinas and also down here at some of our largest cities in the South, in the Mid-South, and then back into the Ohio Valley. But a couple other things to point out. We have a large area under flood watch that's in Montana, and there is a frost advisory for parts of the UP and northern Wisconsin because of, just some dry and chilly air that's coming into that area. Speaking of how dry it is, I just want to show you how low these dew point temperatures are getting. We do have places here that are dipping down into the low 20s for dew point temperatures. Now that's common in the desert Southwest, but very uncommon for this particular area to see such low dew point temperatures. And as we play this forward, just take a look. One of the good things about it is right out ahead of it, there is this ribbon of higher moisture air. So as this front, which is right in through here, slides through, it is lifting, giving moisture to this area. I'll show you that in a few seconds. But that drier air penetrates through, and by the time we get into Friday, we've really allowed it to encompass such a large part of not only the Great Lakes Basin, but the Ohio Basin, the Tennessee Valley, the Appalachian Mountains. It's going to push down here into the southeast pretty far. Now, playing through this weekend, watch this. This is Saturday, getting into Sunday. There's another front. Can you see it right in through there? See the change? But out ahead of that, on Saturday going into Sunday, we're going to make a pull on this moisture from the Gulf that's going to return these 60-degree dew points to this area. So major swing in dew point temperatures. And some of the best new model evidence I've got actually curl up below right here over parts of lower Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and it's going to sit there and spin, which means we're going to get some moisture out of this into this region, which is going to be excellent for this forecast. Then after that, what we're going to watch is going to be a pretty good contrast. It's going to roll right through this section of the country for where we do have the moisture and where there's still drier air coming through. And that's going to set us up with this next 7 to 10 days of precipitation. I mentioned a moment ago that there is rain coming through, and as I play this, you're just going to see that frontal boundary sliding through, bringing rain into parts of out of Minnesota, but into Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, getting into parts of Ohio, Kentucky. This is going through early this morning here with the raw radar data showing us where we got some of those just critically needed showers. Outside of that, storms just continue to blow up on the heat of the day out here in the plains. More organized complex of storms came through parts of Texas, but look here along the Front Range. That's just been an ongoing issue for quite some time. I always get asked, what are all these blobs? This is just clear air echo by the radar. So this is non-filtered radar data. You're getting the raw data here. That's one of the things I like about this site. So you see blocked beams and spikes, and you can also see the wind turbines. These aren't storms. Those are actually wind turbines being viewed here by the radar. But these are the storms. But we add that all up. Here's the last 24 hours of total accumulated precipitation. And the good news is, see kind of the streaky behavior of this. These are these longer duration light rainfall events that crops love versus the hyper-localized storm clusters we've seen elsewhere. We remember that this whole week we've been watching this low curl up over California, and it has put down a lot of thunderstorms here coming off the Sierra Nevada mountains down into this part of south central California. And then again, through this corridor throughout Nevada, Oregon, getting up into parts of Montana. Also note the southern Canadian prairies picked up quite a bit of thunderstorm activity out of this. So from here, let's go take a look at the high-res NAM, and we're going to pick this up at 7 o'clock this morning. We're going to watch that frontal boundary continue to concentrate these rains through the morning hours. This is through 9, 10, 11 o'clock this morning, swiping it through southern Illinois and southern Indiana, getting into Kentucky. This is not drought busting by any stretch, but it is moisture coming through. And then it pushes over the Appalachian Mountains by late tonight. And then we're going to bring this rain into parts of southern Virginia and North Carolina, right through there. Now, outside of that, you're going to just continue to see, if I just take you back, there are isolated showers and storms here, and then again in the Front Range, and watch again the low that's spinning over California, delivering more of that as well. Getting into the day on Thursday, you can see how far to the south that frontal boundary makes it. Again, more rain coming into parts of Montana. Place has been quite wet, and this is the area we've got the flood watch out for. And this will just go on out here through Thursday night, getting into Friday morning, and we're going to wait for the weekend to shift things around a bit. What I'm watching for the weekend as this adjusts here is, see all this very weak flow? This is starting to change finally. And the first kind of catalyst for change is right here, this short wave. It's actually going to get pulled around a larger trough and get yanked and left right here over parts of like lower Michigan. And what's helping it do that is this ridge is beginning its retreat, and we're starting to see that momentum coming across the Pacific Ocean we've been talking so much about, plus a subtropical jet gathering some energy. So these are all components to this flow pattern coming up. So let's go out there and look at this. Watch this guy right here. As I play this forward, it moves throughout the day on Wednesday into Thursday to there. But there is a deeper trough here while this ridge, see, it moves back toward, British Columbia. Now, as we get into Friday, it's just there. It's not much. But that trough sweeps around the back side of this low here. This is by Sunday morning. And it curls itself up over parts of Wisconsin first by Monday, and then eventually over lower Michigan. And that is the needed catalyst to get the momentum going and get the rain to get squeezed out of this atmosphere. And what's happening after that? We're starting to see just better subtropical flow coming through this area. So the newest updates, this is now the next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. Again, if you just remember, we had been identifying this corridor for about the last 3 weeks. We've been identifying that corridor as finally getting this moisture as we get in here toward, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And we're starting to now see that happen. Our holdout for drier air has always been this upper Midwest Great Lakes region. So this is the WPC forecast. Let's now go look at the European model. So here it is. This is from the current front. We can see the storm still popping here. The wet conditions in Montana we've talked about. The rain coming into the Columbia Basin late this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There it is. And then what we're going to watch is that low as it tries to come down through here on Saturday into Sunday, Monday. Do you see it? Right there. So that is the first round of rain for some people in this part of the Midwest, in some of them well over a month. And that comes through, and it curls its way up into Ontario and Quebec, bringing rain to those wildfire areas. And let's just park this out there at 1 week and go take a look at what the GFS is doing. There's that weekend system, see it? And as it comes through and curls up, it delivers rain in very similar areas. So comparing the models out there to day 7, this is what you end up getting. We now have a much better mix of where the European is coming in here and delivering better rain, whereas before it was almost entirely dominated by the GFS. Now, I always like to take this, because we know the models flip-flop so much beyond this point, and look at the ensemble support through day 10. So here's the newest maps I've got on the probability of getting at least an inch through the next 10 days. And so we see the highest probabilities here in Montana, down into Colorado, but then there's a larger area in through here that has better than a 50 to 70% chance of bringing in that moisture. If we compare that to the ECMWF ensemble, which is here, you notice that the ECMWF is a bit more concentrated on where it's seeing that, giving drier air into this region. And I have reason to believe that the European has probably got this corridor identified, which means we're going to have a significant portion here of the United States growing areas into the Great Lakes that are going to continue to stay on the drier side of things going forward. But there is good news still in this pattern, in that the jet is still expected to have a poleward shift and extension. So what that means is, if we take a look at it here, just focused on North America, as the jet comes racing across the Pacific, we're going to just finally lose the really weak flow here by late this week into this weekend. And you can start to see the flow picking up. We can start to see the subtropical jet providing its kind of extra push. And by the time we get out there to like next Tuesday, Wednesday, this is the kind of the two components of the jet we're going to be watching. Notice the ridge is gone, the big ridge that was here. We're going to see the temperatures respond to that. And the subtropical jet, which is very typical of El Nino, starts to do this. And the flow comes in and over. And what this does is this builds heat into these areas eventually, but it really gives us the best chance for having some ridge riding storms to come over the top of this. And that's what we're going to be watching through the middle of the month of June. This makes me so happy to see momentum returning into this area through the middle part of June. Okay, what about that week 2 forecast then? This is the newest update from the CPC. Again, we can kind of map out their wettest and driest corridors. They've again identified the Great Lakes Basin as missing out the longest. That's also true in the European and a little bit here in the GFS. All three models are drier along the Gulf Coast, as you can see here as well. So that gives us a better picture on this time frame. And tomorrow night, I'll of course go into the longer range, in-depth stuff. On temperatures, though, let's take a look here at the maximum temperatures. So behind that cold front, it will be cooler. We then see this is Thursday's temperatures, really quite cool here in New England. We then get into Friday, the heat stays in the northern plains, and at times back in the Pacific Northwest. California, you're cool the whole time. There's Saturday getting into Sunday. This is the next event. Remember when the low is curling up here, bringing in the moisture. There's Monday and Tuesday. So what we don't see is a tremendous amount of heat stress going forward. And our latest 15-day outlook, which is shown here by a 5-day sliding window of average temperatures, gets us out there day 5 through 10. We have the cooler air in the midsection of the country, the warmth compared to average in the Canadian Prairie and Northwest. But do you notice this? This is what we're watching for change. And as we play this out there, this is the best indications we continue to see that we're going to get flow that does that. And what it is it's different. It's different from what's got us into this incredible drought. Now I want to show you something. I know I've had a lot of corn growers in the Midwest in my ear the last few days just asking great questions. And I went back and I said, all right, what did May and June do for all of the years where we had above trend yield, trend line or above trend yield since 1970? So I got all the years listed out here. Ignore the asterisks. These are the years you want to look at. And during those years, we were drier in a large area here, but we were wetter in Texas, Louisiana. We were wetter in the Northeast. And when you stitch them all together, that's what you get. But I need you to see something here. I say drier, but look at the colors. We're off by about an inch. And that's not what we've had this year. We've been substantially drier, farther to the east compared to those years. So what this has done is this has set up an area here in the upper Midwest through the Midwest Ohio Valley getting into New England that is much more sensitive to potential longer-term stresses on the crop because of the lack of soil moisture. And yes, we're still waiting on NASA to update that server to get that data back to us. But the drought has been, in my opinion, broken in a lot of places here throughout the plains because of this. Now I want to come back and do one last thing here. If I flip this over and instead show you what made those such high-yielding years, let's go through July and into August. And what you're going to see is when you look at the national corn yield numbers, it will make sense that then those months went over wet for this whole area. So I just wanted to point that out just as another point of kind of just analysis here. And I look forward to talking again tomorrow. Thanks.